So it's a Yamaha G29 golf cart. G29 runs from 2007 to about 2016, and then it goes to the Drive 2. But this will pretty much be the same, even in a Drive 2, same motor right up until you go to the AC cart. So the problem is when you stand on the accelerator, it jumps away at full speed, then slows down and surges erratic. But the fix that I'm about to show you can actually have a lot of other different symptoms. So don't think if your cart's not surging but you've got a problem that this might not be the repair. I've seen this same repair, the cart not even running. It just won't work. It switches on, everything turns on, but the cart won't run, or it runs erratically, like it'll work one day, won't work the next day. Easiest way, if that is the case, if it's working one day, not the next day, or just not running at all, simplest way to diagnose it is put it into run under there, switch it to run so it's on, and then push the cart. So just push it forward. And if it poses resistance and beeps at you, that's the anti-roll away. If it doesn't beep at you or doesn't pose any resistance, then the brushes are stuck out, they're not touching the armature, and then this is the fix that you need to do to fix your cart. As I said, this one hasn't gone that far. The brushes are obviously sticking, but they're still contacting enough of the cart to run. It's just running erratic. There's a lot of different symptoms, but it'll all be back to this same issue. So let's get under it, get the motor out, and I'll show you what the problem is. First thing is to remove these clips so you can get to the wiring of the electric motor. So next thing is 10mm there, 13mm there. Remove all those wires. Don't forget this guy. That's the speed sensor. Unplug that. Once you've undone them, just bear in mind, they're labelled. They're all got labels on them. When they're going back on, don't mess it up. Okay, so once the wires are off, speed sensor is disconnected. You've now got 3 10mm bolts, one at the top, 2 from underneath. So whip them out. Righto, motor's out. Let's get up on the bench and get into it. So to start removing everything from the motor and pulling it apart, you take the speed sensor off first. There's 2 Phillips head screws in there that need to come out, and also these guys, there's 4 of them. Once your speed sensor's off and these 4 bolts are out, you've got 2 Phillips head screws here and here. That's got a washer on the back of that and holds the armature in. Okay, so once you've got it apart, you'll see that there's a ton of carbon dust. It's from these brushes running on the armature, and they create some dust as they wear down. You can see that the marks there, it's been arcing. That is our issue. That's the surging. So what we're going to do is make sure all these brushes slide. If one doesn't slide, that could be what's causing it. Make sure they're all free. We're going to polish this armature up with some really fine sandpaper. If it's too badly done, too badly scored or burnt, you actually have to go and get that machine, but this one will come up all right with some fine sandpaper. Right, we'll get stuck into that. When you're sanding down the armature, don't go too coarse. Start with some dry, maybe 240. You don't want to rip into it too hard, because once those ribs are gone, the armature's buggered. Start with a 240 and finish with something like an 800, but you can go as fine as you want. You just want that nice and polished. Just about there. I'm actually going to go a bit finer. I'm going to go 2000 on this one to really clean up. It's come up pretty good. So that polished up all right. Haven't quite taken those two ribs there and there out, but it doesn't really matter. The brush is all right on that surface in the middle. We're going to clean this brush holder out. We're also going to clean out the motor, so I'll get into that now. When you're reassembling the armature, here's a little trick. With your springs obviously holding your brush in, get it and flip it up to the top like that, and that way your brush stays out. And if you flick them all around that way, you can sit your armature in, because you can't, it's very difficult to push all of them back at the same time you're putting the armature in. So flick your spring up like this. So once you got your armature back in, now you just grab your spring, if I can do it with one hand, and flick him behind the brush so it's pushing on the brush again. So just grab him like that, flick him behind there, and that pushes the brush into the armature. Like that. Now it's time for the case to go back on. So sit on its side like that, get your hand in behind, and just hold the plate forward. And then you can do it that way. You can see through the hole, make sure it's lined up, because otherwise if you just sit it up on its end this way, the washer will just fall back and you can't reach it with a thread. Okay, sit it on its side, line it up, and screw it in like that. When your case is going back together, these terminals don't line up, so don't try and line them up. Look for this. There's a cast there and there's a groove there, and that's what will line up to get your screws in properly. Couple little things as you're going back together. Physically read on the cables, make sure you don't mess that up, and plug in your speed sensor. Different models will react different ways if you don't plug that in. Some just won't run, others will go flat out, but long term it's not great. It's there for a reason. Don't forget to cable tie this guy, and when you're doing these bolts up, I'll show you one underneath. Don't fall into this trap, which I've done this a few times. When you're under here, putting it back in, don't try and put it in there. You'll be there trying to get it in for hours. It's the one above there. That one has no thread. All right, we're almost done. We'll put it back together. The kids have test run the cart. The surge is gone. So the repair work, as I said, there's different symptoms. Some not running at all. It's that model there, G29, runs from 07 right through. You'll probably find that repair works with the early ones, the G22s as well, and definitely works with the later 16s, 17s, the Drive 2, same motor.